Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm Jolina. I work for the European Green Party for the Local Councillors Network, and I would like to wish you all a warm welcome to this webinar. We're very happy to be doing this webinar with Niklas Ninas, member of the European Parliament, who is going to explain us all about community-led local regional funding. And we have two other speakers, Marion Eckhart, who is currently president of the European Leader Association for Rural Development. And we also have Christina Tammet, and I hope I pronounce your names correctly, who is head of the ELARD Knowledge Exchange Platform and manager of the local action group Tartu County Development Association in Estonia. We're very happy to have you here as speakers tonight. And without further ado, I just want to give the floor to Niklas.
All right, thank you very much. Welcome to everyone, and thank you for taking the time to get into the field of regional funding and what we can do for our regions, especially for green matters and how to improve the regions with European funding. So I'll have a presentation for you that I just have to share. Give me a second, please. There we go. And so I hope you see it well and we can turn into. My name is Niklas Ninas. I'm a member of the European Parliament, and I'm also coordinator of the Regi Committee for the Greens. That's how I look when it's not so warm, and I'm actually wearing a bottom-up shirt. Now we have to see why it's not continuing. Okay, I don't know. Anyway, we have an agenda for today. So today we'll take a deep look into the EU regional funding and then look a little bit into the green wins that we got out of the Regi funds. And then we will go into depth of the different funding methods there are, or the different funds there are. And then lastly, we'll take a deep look into the issue of CLLD. And CLLD is a very important measure for at least as Greens, because it means that we give power back to the people. And that is really something that we're all working for. And that's also the reason why we have especially Marion and Christine with us from the ELARD, who know quite a lot about the CLLD programming. So we want to learn a little bit from that and see how can we work on with it in the future, and how can we use it in, for example, regional development funds. And lastly, we'll talk about the implementing phases, because there's still work to be done when we want to ensure that green funding arrives at your region and in your municipality. So first of all, let's take a short look at the budget that we have this year. If you look at it, we have around 1.8 billion euro in total. That's including the Corona Response Mechanism Next Generation EU, where we have 750 billion euros, as well as the overall budget of almost a billion. I'm sorry, this is actually, this is wrong, because this is a German translation. It's trillion, 1.8 trillion euros. So it's quite a lot of money. And we all know, and we mostly hate it, the CAP, the Common Agricultural Policy. As you all know, this is a field where we have intense funding, but also it's very much involved in destroying local farmers, as well as their and small-scale farms, as well as the environment around it. So we have high problems with it, and Greens are always fighting for the Common Agricultural Policy. I think you all know that. However, other big point that we're not talking about so often is cohesion policy. And cohesion policy has almost the same budget as the Common Agricultural Policy, but it goes in very different ways. It goes into ERDF, for example, which is economic support. It goes in ESF, which is social support, and just transition, and fishing even, and in many different other forms. And this money can be used for good, and it can be used for bad. And we as Greens need to make sure from the start, so from the European level to the very, very bottom, to the councillors level, to the municipalities, to down where the people live, that this money is not spent in a bad way, but is actually used for good. And you see that it's really mattering because it is so much money that we invest time into this topic. And so I'm very glad and thankful that you're all here and taking the time to ensure that this money is used for the Green Deal, is used for a better future. Let's take a look at the regional funding. So when we talk about regional funding, just to let you know, I'll call it quite often, you know, that's technical speech, but you know how we use abbreviation all the time. And our main abbreviation for the regional funding is mainly Common Provisions Regulations, which just means it's the roof regulation for all the funds. It's like the overreaching regulation under which all the other funds fall, and then they have their specificities. Until 2020, also the EAFRD, which is in the rural development, was also under it. Now it's not anymore, sadly, I have to say. But anyway, or as I already mentioned, 330 billion euros. That's including the Next Generation EU funding for that. And we have 3 different regional categories. I'll show you that in a second. It's mostly depending on the GDP of the region itself, so it's really smaller regions that are evaluated, and depending on the category that your region falls in, it varies. The funding quota varies between 40 and 58%. So it's 40 for the most developed regions. They get only 40% funding, additional funding. The medium developed countries get 60% funding, and the least developed regions get 85% funding. And also the size of the overall budget is increased for the smaller, for the least developed regions. And that, I mean, that makes sense. We want to help the least developed more than we need to support the already good developed ones. So let's take a look how that looks for Europe. This is the category the category by the European Commission. You see here down here the category. The dark red means less than 75% of the overall GDP, of the average GDP of the European Union. So if you have 75% or less of that, then you are in the 3rd region, so in the less developed, so the red ones here. So we see a main focus is on south of Europe and east of Europe. And then we have the middle category, which is the transition regions, as they call it. So it's 75% to 100%. So almost in the middle, a little bit slightly under the average. That is the transition regions. It's the dark yellow or orange. So we see it focuses on Central Europe, a little bit here and there. And then we have the most developed regions. Those are the ones with a GDP over 100% of the average of the European Union. And so those are these regions also here in the north. And they get the least funding, they get the least money. Here's, by the way, also the outermost regions. Here mostly, all of them are either less developed or transition regions, but they actually follow quite specific other rules because they're outermost regions anyway. We have in the European regional funding, we have 5 policy objectives. And they are not loading, but okay, now they're coming. They are a smarter Europe, a greener Europe, a more connected Europe, more social, and a Europe closer to citizens. Lots of them are self-explanatory, so it's mainly investments in digitalization for PO1. Then it's investments in biodiversity and in climate-friendly investments. In PO2, in PO3, it's more connected. It's mainly, the classical structural policy, so transportation, digital networks, etc. More social Europe is, of course, social rights to increase that social inclusion, etc. Healthcare, and then the 5th is locally led development strategy, and also a sustainable urban development. So those are the 5 categories, and it is always different. This is, for example, for Germany, in general, it's 65 to 58 85% of ERDF are phased into number 1 on and 2. And it's dependent on the region you live in, it's dependent on the country you live in. For example, Germany has 85% of their funding needs to go into 1 or 2. So you know that we have the European Green Deal, which is focused on the new funding period, and it's focused on climate neutrality by 2050. We all know that that's technically not enough, but at least, you know, it's something. And we are very happy that in this CPR, we actually have, for the first time, a do no significant harm principle, which means that you cannot spend money anymore on stuff that is effectively harming the environment. We also have a biodiversity goal established, as well as an energy efficiency principle. So we have general rules that ensure that there's something green in there that's really true. Because there was a fear in the beginning when we were discussing the Green Deal that it's more like a press release and less action. But what we made sure during the negotiations is that those principles were actually in there as horizontal principles to ensure that money cannot be spent in a bad way, that it needs to be more in an energy efficiency, and that it serves the biodiversity goal. The CPR itself will always be done in involvement with the local and regional authorities. And so we have this partnership agreement which ensures that they work together with the society around them and with the community in order to have a good program. We'll come to that in a minute, just to let you know already. And yes, of course, the second policy objective, the greener and carbon-free Europe, there was a huge win from the beginning because it was already presented in 2018. But then we made it possible to increase the need to invest in that political objective during the negotiation, of which I'm obviously very happy, because so we ensure that more money can be flowing into the green transition. We have overall 30% of the overall funding needs to be in climate and environmental measures of the ERDF, which is the Economic Support Fund, and of the 37% of the Cohesion Fund has to be spent there as well. By the way, the Cohesion Fund, we'll come to that also in a minute, but the Cohesion Fund is not available to all countries, just to let you know, but for those it's relevant. And because it invests so much in infrastructure, it's good that the amount that they have to spend in climate and environmental measures is quite higher. Overall, from the MFF, we come to a climate spending of 30%. That is unprecedented, to be honest. And so I'm really happy about it. Of course, we could have done more, and with the Green Commission, that would have probably looked different. But 30% for the MFF, for the overall spending, is unprecedented, and so it's quite a big win for the green wave that we had. The ERDF, and that is very important to understand, is, as I'm always calling it, the economic fund. But it's not only for economic support. We can also support quite different issues with it, and you can be, let's say, somewhat creative in what the funding really means. You know, if you, let's say you fund a bus line with it, you know, the bus line itself is not economic, but of course it brings economic prosperity to a region because people can reach the region, right? And so that's already fundable. You can support infrastructure with it, as well as renovating existing infrastructure. So if you, for example, want to renew the building of a school to make it more climate neutral, you can do that and get funding from ERDF. That's actually possible. So that's very important. As you know, we also want to fade out of coal and all other fossil fuel combustion until, well, at last 2050. I hope so very much earlier. And for that, to make it socially compliant, we need a just transition. And therefore, we have the Just Transition Fund that supports the regions that are facing that at much. So if you're living in a region where you have a lot of coal, lead, gas, oil, something like that, anything in that production, there's a fund that will help your region to also get out of this fossil dependent industries and ensure that nobody's be left behind. The good news about that is we made it possible that this fund will not support any fossil fuels. There was strong lobbying from the gas lobby. There was strong lobbying within our members from the EPP, so from the conservative side, to get gas in there, even oil, so that they have a stepping stone for their investments. And thankfully, through enormous pressures from all sides, we made it possible that this died in the negotiations, and that there will be no fossil fuels supported in this fund at all. This is something that we're sadly missing, of course, in the ERDF. There's some gas investments can be done there, but at least we have there it minimized to maximum of 1%. Yeah, and I already mentioned the partnership principle and the citizen participation. So whenever the plans are written on how to use the funds, there must be a partnership principle, so citizen participation used in order to write those funds. And I think also for the first time ever, we have a clear writing on equality, on gender non-discrimination, well, gender budgeting and non-discrimination. And this is something that I think we didn't have in the future before in that clear language for regional funds. Oh yeah, we're already in the funds. So let's step into the different funds that we have. And the first one is and it's mainly the most important because it's the biggest, is the ERDF, so the European Regional Development Fund. It is, as I said, mainly for economic prosperity, but not only. Its main focus is to minimize the regional disparities in all Europe, and to ensure that those pictures that we had, of Europe, where that the red spots get lighter and lighter, and that we all have the same way of living. And I think that's a very good idea. So therefore it focuses on economic development. Of course, through research and innovation and digitalization, this is also a fund that can support small and medium enterprises, which is not so common because due to the treaties, it's not possible for single member states to do that in such a clear way. But it can also help to build up a CO2-free economy. And as I also already said, if you're creative with it, this economic development through something can be really extended. So what we've already seen is cultural infrastructure to build up in the theaters, new stages where people can practice and have plays, etc. We even have a wording from the Court of Audit that says the investments from the ERDF in cultural infrastructure is too few. Then you have promotion of women. Climate and environmental measures can be supported with that, as I already mentioned earlier, with, for example, new buildings or existing ones, renovating in the existing ones. So there is really something possible if you're, let's say, creative enough with the funding, and you always have to see what the plans enable then. And as mentioned, 30% of that is for climate. The next fund that we want to look at is the Cohesion Fund. The Cohesion Fund, as I mentioned, is also very big, and it is a part of the ERDF that is not available for every member state, but only a certain group. Basically, those where the general national income is lower than 90% of the EU average. So the poorest, the least developed regions of Europe, to support them especially. And this focus is here to get rid of the disparities again, but especially here through networks and through infrastructure. So you have quite a lot of possibilities to invest this funding, but this funding will be mainly invested through the member states themselves. And what we need to ensure with that, or what we did with the 37% of spending for climate policies, is that this spending will not go, into the classical of roads, but that we see more of trains being moved, that we see a shift from coal power plants to renewable power plants, etc. And there, as I mentioned, 37% for the climate. Then we have the European Social Fund. This is a fund that is focus on social issues, and therefore not for economy, but really for social issues. And this focus is especially much on education and jobs. So basically, job education is very important for this fund. So everything that goes in that direction is really helpful to be funded. And you see here that you have also the possibility to be fairly creative, at least as it's a social program. So there's quite a lot of things that we can do. And one thing that I always want to mention in this regard is environmental education, because that is something that is at least in theory possible with the right plans in place. And of course, because I'm also doing cultural policy, and I know that culture is very important to the people in the communities, you can also focus in the direction of culture. So please go ahead and think in that direction as well. Then we have Interreg. Interreg is a very important and nice fund because it connects really over cross-border, and it ensures that you have information flow over the border. And one thing that I can, first of all, no matter where you live, you are part of an Interreg region. So there are different regions. They are sometimes small, sometimes very big. So for example, there's one here where I live, close to the Polish border. So German Poland have one Interreg region called Pomerania, and this one is very small because it's just one Woiwodschaft and 2 Bundesländer. So it's fairly small, right? But we're also in a part of the Baltic Sea region, and that is gigantic. That's all of the Scandinavian, basically the whole Baltic states, even Russia is into it, and then some parts of Germany and so on. Other parts of Germany, for example, in the south, are part of the Alpine regions, and so on. There are different smaller and big regions for Interreg, and they have great ways to connect people. And whenever you have a problem, you can talk to them and see if they have already found a solution for that, and if not, you can connect to other people in the Interreg region and work together to find a solution for that problem. And they've done so much stuff already, for example, mobility in rural areas, lightning for cities, regions that want to improve their carbon footprint, so whole cities, energy cities, etc. So basically, whenever you have a problem in your constituency, in your region, wherever you live, and you think about it, it's like, wow, this is really tricky. I don't know how to solve it. Go to the website of Interreg, just research Interreg into Ecosia or Google, and see if they've already found a solution for that in your region. And then you can access that solution. There's very much this best practice experience. There's also a lot of times universities involved to study it. And so take a look at what they've found. And that will be, a lot of times, if there's anything, there will be even a step-by-step how to do it, and how to get funding for it and everything. So please take a look at Interreg, and it's a great way to connect with other regions and get best practice ideas and great experiences. So the next fund, this one I mentioned earlier already, is the Just Transition Fund, which is just for coal regions, and it is planned on, as I mentioned, ensuring that the transition towards a climate neutral Europe is fair for all. And so this fund is only, it supports quite a lot. I mentioned that we made it possible to get gas out and fossil fuels out, but it is only for coal regions. While coal regions, some might be lead, so it's a little bit tricky. For example, in France, in southern France, they have made one region into the JTF region because France wanted to get some money out of the pot, and they're only having a pipeline there, so it's not really fitting the definition. But let's say carbon-dependent industry must be a very much relevant industry in your region for you to profit. But check it out on the Just Transition website. And then I will just say a word about this. This is the regional fund, the one that we call regional fund, but it is in the agricultural fund. And that's the second pillar of the CAP, so in the Common Agricultural Policy. And that is the EAFRD, which is for rural development. And so this is a very important fund for rural regions. If you're living in a rural region, you probably know LEADER, or have at least heard about it. It's widely used, and we'll hear about that in a second from Ilet more. It is not part of the regional development, which is very bad, I think, for us, because it makes it very dependent on what the agriculture bosses want. And at the moment, the discussion goes in a direction, or at least, the agriculture lobby wants to have more money and take it from this fund. And that is very bad for everybody who lives in rural development, in rural regions. But we'll come to that with our experts from Ilet. Again, only rural areas, but mostly bottom up. That's good. And then lastly, we want to talk about community-led local development, so CLLD, which is a bottom-up approach to implement the RGGI funds. And we made it possible. Okay, in this case, local action groups will receive the budget and decide on the projects. Again, this will be explained a little bit in detail with Mario and the others, and Christina. And they're actually celebrating their 30th birthday this year. But what we made possible for the first time is that in regional development, you can use it, and you cannot just use it, but you actually get 10% more funding if you use CLLD. So this is a way to get additional money for your region if the plan is set out the right way. I'll skip this because I'm already talking quite long. I saw that, sorry. And one problem that we have is we need the political will to actually use it. And we need the administration to do it. And this is really tricky because either you don't have the political will, sometimes it's because they don't want it, politicians don't want it, because if politicians give the power to the people, they don't have it at their own, right? If they let the people decide how to use the funds, then they can't decide it on their own, and that's not so cool for some politicians. Sometimes they just don't know. They don't know that this instrument is there. So if you have Green Group members or members, members of the parliament or ministers or whatever, who could influence this, but they're not aware of it, make sure that they are aware of it. And the other thing is that the administration says it's too complicated. It's, they have to shift the whole way of spending money, and that's way too complicated for them than just doing the same thing as they do over and over again. So therefore, we have a huge problem in setting steps into motion, but the benefits are tremendous because it can really elevate the region that you live in. So what can we do at the moment? At the moment, there are the operation programs are being written. So this is the framework for the whole funding on what's going on in your region. And this is written by the member states, so that by the national government. In some regions, for example, Germany and Austria, the Bundesländer will write the regional plans. They have an agreement with the national government, so the regional authorities will write. But anyway, check out who writes your operational program and ensure that this will be included here, because you can only use it on the region level if it is in this plan. And this is the very important step. The plans are written at the moment, and so I go directly over to the next point, which is the implementation of RGGI funds. As I mentioned, this principle is called shared management. When the EU Commission talks to the member states, they tell them this is what's allowed. This is the CPR is the guideline of what is allowed and what possibilities they have, and then the member states have to write their own play how they interpret all the rules. They have to be within the rules, but they can steer a little bit more to the left or a little bit more to the right, and so the plans are all different for every region, which is good because every region is different, and so therefore the plans should reflect on that, right? But what we need to ensure is that in this moment, the right things are written in these plans. If there's only, let's build some more cars, let's build some more roads, let's build some more, trash combustion and all this nonsense, then the funds will be wasted. But if we ensure that there's citizens' participation included, that there's social projects included, that there's renewable energy projects included, then this can be good. And we can elevate it from good to better, because what we made with the CPR is to ensure that the foundation is all right. It's good, And now we need to go on the regional level to ensure that we can, make it better. And then we can use those funds in such a good way that no matter who touches this fund, there can be nothing bad be done with it. And so this is the thing that we are in at the moment. There is a monitoring committee where you have stakeholders in there, social partners, NGOs, and that might be, if you're well connected to NGOs, an easier way to get into, because sometimes, if you're not in government at the moment as Greens, then you will probably have problems to reach out to other parties because they don't like us so much. But maybe they listen to some NGOs, and and you have good connections to those NGOs as well. So what we are doing at the moment is also that we are connecting a lot in Germany with the social partners to ensure, and they're really loving the idea of including more CLLD, so more community-led local development into the program. And so this is something that I really want to ask you to do as well, and that we can discuss on later on a little bit more. And there we go. And for the timeline, it has already started, so we are in the end of it, to be quite honest. So we really need to go and act now in the end, because after it has been written, it will stand for almost 7 years. There is possibility to change it if the government changes. But it's limited. It has not been done so often. So this is the best time to do it. Otherwise, we have to wait for another 7 years. So thank you very much for your attention. And I want to head it over. First of all, I need to end the presentation. There we go. So I'm back, and I can give the word directly to Marion Eckert, who's from ELAD, which is the European Leader Association. No, I don't know what the exact abbreviations, you must tell us yourself, but it's the combination of all leader groups throughout Europe. And so they have tons of experience in CLLD and in rural development. And so I hope she brings you very much interesting news and some best practices from all over Europe. So Marion, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. Wait, I am not muted yet, no? Yeah, you hear me, I guess. So my name is Marion Eckert, and I am the president of ELARD. ELARD is an abbreviation for European Leader Association for Rural Development, and we are joining more than 2,200 local action groups, the groups that work with LEADER method around Europe from 28 different countries. And I will tell you a little bit about the use of multi-fund CLLD. And I'm so happy that I put that Mr. Stefan Ka is the source of this, because he's in the audience. We we can see that 4 types of countries in terms of use of the ERDF and ESF. We see the countries that are not using it at all, the gray countries. We have limited implementation of that in the yellow countries, extensive in the orange, and comprehensive in the red ones. So the red ones are the best ones. That's Sweden, where I am from, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Slovenia, and Portugal. And then we have regionalized cases in Austria, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Poland, and the UK. We have Mr. Stefan Ka and also Mr. Servillo. So together they have done extensive research on what different funds are the local action groups working with. We have 3,318 local action groups that they have investigated on. And to make it short, 66% are only using the rural fund. Because it was already possible in the 2014 and 2020 period to use the regional fund and the social fund and the fisheries fund. But then it's up to the member states, and when there is no earmarking, it is hard to get it through. And the reason why LEADER is so extensively used in the rural fund is because it's an obligatory earmarking, and most countries stay on those 5%. And we have some cases that go higher, and those are good cases that we keep spreading. But and that is also the reason why we keep working for earmarking from European level, because we see that the problem is always at the member state or regional level. Yeah, so we have 24% of all these local action groups are working with more than, we are working with the cohesion policy funding, and most of them are combining it with the rural fund, but 36 of them only use one fund, and we only have 9 local action groups that actually work with all 4 funds, with the regional fund, the social fund, agricultural fund, and fisheries fund. And those ones are actually situated mostly in Sweden. You see the blue crosses on the map are where the 4 funded local action groups are. We have 1 in Poland and 8 in Sweden. And why is that? That is a very interesting case why they all landed in Sweden. And I will go into a little bit with the Swedish model. In Sweden, we have 53 local action groups, where 5 unfortunately didn't get any funding, but tried to somehow work, didn't work so well, but they are still claiming and are wanting to get into the next programming period. We have 6 areas that work with only 1 fund, and the other ones are multi-funded. And this is because we have a model that they have now taken over a little bit in the legislation, that there is one lead fund that makes okay, wait. In Sweden, we have had a special program for the regional fund and social fund, CLLD, and we have made the same institution as the managing authority. So the complexity has been dealt with on the managing authority level, so that we, as local action groups, could just apply for one strategy, and we didn't find it more complex than if we would have just used the rural fund, and that's the same for the beneficiaries, and in the and that is a model that has worked very well. And now we have the lead fund option, so that when people or countries or regions decide to implement the multi-fund solution, there is a possibility to have one lead fund that will set the rules and regulations, so that you don't have to deal with 4 different strategies and 4 different rules and regulations, which is the case actually in Portugal in this programming period. So yeah, so that is a very good model. And myself, I am the president of ALARD, but I'm also a LAG manager, actually in southwestern of Sweden, in an area called Halland. And we had 4 funds. We have had, it has been a great experience, and we're still working with all 4 funds. What happens when you work with an integrated strategy is that you have the top down, which I would say is the European Union and national level, that say you have this part in fisheries, this part in the agricultural, and this part for the social fund, and this for the regional fund. And then you go to the local level and you workshop and you decide what do you want to do, and identify the local need and possibilities, and then you make a local strategy that make the top down and bottom up meet. Because of course we need to we cannot do anything at local level if we are using funding from national, European and regional level. It has to somehow fit together still, but there is a possibility to fill the needs of all levels, and I think that is what the local strategy is about. So I will tell you some small examples from my own local action group. We have had, for example, one project in the social fund was called Team We Dream, because you might remember we had a refugee crisis in 2015 and 16, and many of those people came to Sweden. And my municipality where I live was one of the top 270 municipalities to take on new arrivals per capita. So when all these people came, people started working with them and integrating them. And there is one person, I don't know if we see her in the picture, Anna. She was just starting up at the moment a new sports center. And then all of a sudden she got all these newly arrived people next door to her making language courses. And she was like, I have to do something with all these people, because they were so curious. And so she started to work with integration through sport, and we financed it because we believe always are good that are fun in integration, actually, because in the end, it is not the organizations hiring people, it is people hiring people. So if you want to get into the society, you have to make friends, you have to get a social situation where you can live and work in. And so they have been working since 2016, and she's still going on with this integrative work and doing all kind of different stuff. And also because in her organization, people pay to train, but also she's reinvesting this money all the time in integration work, which is a great way to live. I guess I really admire her. And we have also youth in Halland, and this is the way a way that many local action groups work, or not many, a handful of local action groups work with integrating youth through like an umbrella project in which the youth are able to do what they want to do. And in our case, it has been target group 13 to 25. And we have had this in the rural fund, but we have also had it in the regional fund, so that the kids in the cities can connect to the rural, and that we can do it together. And it's about actually, it's about personal development of the kids. It's about making them more entrepreneurial, making them more socially aware about their responsibility in their own local communities, and maybe even to make them political active, because you taking responsibility and seeing what needs you have, and they have to be at least 3 to together do something. And I think that the projects themselves, maybe they don't last, but the lessons that the kids take with them last for a lifetime. And it's really wonderful to see them grow in this. And it can be all kinds of stuff, like the 3 girls on the top right that said, okay, the beach in our village is not so nice, and they cleaned it up and got their friends with them, and we paid for a volleyball net, and so that, you know, take responsible themselves and not just moan around. And or we have had many skateboard ramps, we have had many festivals and music festivals, and also other different things. Or on the top left, we had one gang that started up a new ski lift in the area with a really, you know, old-fashioned ski lift and second-hand skis from the area. And with a little bit of money, they can do so much, and it's great to see the kids grow. That is one example. And from the social fund, the project that I normally talk about from us is this doula and cultural interpreter. It was also a great project, because we see in the very back is Jenny, who is kind of the driver of this project. She is a midwife, and when all the new persons came to Sweden, she realized that she couldn't communicate with the people giving birth, because they couldn't understand each other language-wise, but also not culturally. So she decided to make a support system out of doulas, and a doula is somebody who is joining the woman from her pregnancy and all the way to like maybe when the child is 1 year old, and also is there through the birth. Those women got educated from Jenny, and she realized a lot of things. For example, that many women, they don't even know in their own language what is the name for a uterus. So there was a lot of things that got learned. And also these women that got educated as doulas, they grew also so much, because they got a job in Sweden, they were educated, and they had people listening to them, and that kind of spilled over to the women that they were helping through the birth. So it was really growth project. Unfortunately now, our region is not paying for them anymore, but they were doing great job. But what I want to tell you, oh, sorry, I'm jumping, is like we are 30 years now, and the leader method is really not about the single projects. The leader method is about the whole package of principles that we work with a local action group that are representatives from private, public, and voluntary sector, and make decisions together. And through that we fulfill 5 specific functions. And the first one, I think, is the function of education and democratic policy, because when you use CLLD, you are democratizing the area, because the local people who are the ones that are concerned, they are being involved in the decisions, and are also coming up with the solutions. So it's participatory democracy through regional citizen participation, actually. And working in the local action groups is often voluntary, which promotes the identity and the connectivity in the area. And through this, there is like a knowledge transfer taking place within the local action group, and also with the projects that are being funded from the local action group. Another function that we are filling is the labor market and social political function. Almost all leader projects create jobs. We have many projects in tourism, culture, handicraft, the regional projects that all aim for that. And then also the local action groups take social responsibility in their areas and involve underrepresented groups in the decision making. And this applies for adolescents, older people, migrants, and so on. And then it is the economic policy function. We promote regional value chains, site development, and innovations in tourism, for example. And this is, it's all the time about economy. And also we support innovation. It is social innovation when it's about the reforms from the people concerned for the people concerned, and then it is technical innovation that is promoted a lot in many times, that is in environmental questions to support climate relevant projects or stuff like that. But we also, another thing I want to mention is that we have noticed that the local action groups are very quick in active in crisis and transformation management. We have seen it in the refugee crisis, where my own lag was one on the very front lines, but also in this current crisis. So when we did a research last March and April, we were maybe expecting the local action groups to be a little bit maybe not acting, but they were so active. They were active in support your locals campaigns. They were active in delivering food packages. They were active in helping out with homeschooling or organizing volunteers. So I think that the local action groups, they are also very good for the resilience. They are at the last step, and they are ready to act and to change quickly. And then, of course, the 5th function that I think is important is, or we think is important, is the European political function, because we bring Europe closer to the citizens. We can, for example, now in the long-term vision on rural areas, or in the conference on the future of Europe, we can transport these ideas to the citizens, and then we can get the ideas of the citizens and transport them back to the Commission. And almost all LAGs are members of ELARD, or there is also this European Network for Rural Development that ties us together. And of course, transnational projects are making cooperation between local action groups possible. And there is a problem of some countries making it too complicated, but we also have some countries where it's not so complicated, and then it is so easy because you have the same kind of structure all over Europe. It's a local action group, and they have a managing director, they have a local, they have an office, and it's easy to connect. It's not like one municipality in Sweden, the smallest one is 10,000 people, and I go to Austria and the municipality is 200 people, and it's really hard to find the common connection grounds, but the local action groups have that, and it's really easy to make transnational projects if the administration allows it, and it's making Europe closer to each other. So compared to LEADER, the multi-funded CLLD, it enables a genuine bottom-up approach. It allows targeting of urban territories, increases synergies between different policy areas, and brings simplification for beneficiaries by providing a one-stop shop. And then allows capitalizing on existing LEADER experience. But also important, it increases the funding allocation for LAGs. And I want to mention there that maybe it is not actually, it should not be the perspective that the LAGs need more money. The perspective should be that the regional and social fund are not reaching rural citizens to the extent that it should. It is also for Mr. Stefan Ka, who is in the audience, did a research from the Committee of the Region this year, and only 10% of the regional and social fund is reaching rural citizens, and that's of course far too little. So maybe it's good to use methodology that has been working for 30 years now to see to that it happens, because the rural fund is already reaching its citizens through LEADER. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. I'm done. I'm going to, yeah, I stopped. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Marion. And I think we can continue with Christina.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. I am Christina Tammets. I come from Estonia. I am manager of Local Action Group, and I am also vice president of Estonian LEADER Union, and also leading Estonian CLLD working group, national one, and Smart Villages working group. Okay, I try to share my screen. Yes, here it is. Okay, can you see it?
So far, not. No.
No?
No, it's not. No, it works. Okay.
Now it's okay?
Yes, now we can see it.
Okay, very good. I am going to talk about usage of other funds from the local action group perspective. Actually, in Estonia, for this programming period, we don't have multi-fund. We have monofund approach. So for LEADER, at the moment, it's still possible only to use agricultural fund, but it's already decided on Estonian government office that new programming period we're gonna have a multi-fund approach. We certainly will use social fund in addition to agricultural fund, and also we are trying to find possibilities now to use European Regional Development Fund through Ministry of Environment. So these are our future plans. But still, without multi-funding at the moment, we still use different funds on local level as local action group. And today I'm introducing you the project which is financed by European Regional Development Fund, URBACT program. And this project is about development of local food sector, and we are developing local food network. And by now we have involved about 60 different organizations from different sectors into our local food network. And this project is also very good from that point that this enhances the cooperation between urban and rural areas, because food is important topic for any type of territory and for all the citizens. So it's very good topic to to maybe bring closer rural and urban areas. And this project purpose is also to contribute to the policy making and to propose necessary changes for legislation and integrate food strategy into LEADER strategy and LEADER funding scheme. So we are planning for the next programming period to finance local food sector development through agricultural fund, through LEADER, and also through regional development fund. And in this transnational cooperation project, our local action group is actually only local action group. The rest of partners are from mainly from public sector, actually, local municipalities. And the lead partner is Portugal Coimbra, which is also this year European region of gastronomy. And we have other partners from the southern and central part of Europe. And all those partners, they work out local development strategy for the food sector, and also they are establishing a local food group or local food network in their regions. And our plan is also to carry out a survey about food sector, what is actually the contribution of the food sector into local economy, what are the workplaces, how many workplaces it offers, and so on. Actually, we work a lot also with public sector catering, because public sector offers about 1/3 of daily food dishes to all the 1/3 of the citizens of our county. So it's quite a big sector that actually we need to handle. And we are establishing a food cooperation group, food network, which is multi-sector network, and we are preparing the food strategy that will be implemented at this next stage. And we are also piloting different actions, and one experiment is Green Festival, which is implemented on bottom-up methodology. I will talk about this a little bit more later on. And we are making proposals for national and local policies and legislation. And actually, it came out really problematic issue that actually absolutely doesn't support this local food system, is the procurement system in our public sector, catering, hospitals, schools, etc. And we need to find possibilities how to support through changing legislation usage of local products. and local food. About the local food network, as I mentioned, this is a multi-sector approach. We have involved all different types of actors into this network. We have had very good focus group discussions, and approximately 60 organizations are involved into the network, and we have regular meetings, and we together work out solutions which are important for our county and our territory to develop the food sector. And we have, of course, public sector caters, then private sector, food producers, processors, different types of markets, small local shops, big supermarkets, research and development organizations, because in the middle of our territory is Tartu city, which is second biggest city in Estonia, and we have very big scientific potential in the city. We have 5 universities and a lot of potential through that as well. And we have tourism and food networks, food bank, we are going to cooperate, and different types of projects. And Tartu will be also the European Cultural Capital in 2024, and we cooperate many different types of projects related to this cultural capital as well. And now a few words about our experiment or this pilot action. Each partner in this Urbact Food Corridors network implements different types of experiment, and our experiment is Green Festival. And we take into account all different fields like waste processing, food catering, materials, transport, energy, and communication issues and cooperation relations. And we put together different types of events. We organized trainings for them, and all those events, they developed their own green plan, which takes into account their specifics and what is important for them, or what is the focus of their event, to strengthen even this focus. And they are implementing this green plan this summertime or autumn time. And we have organized trainings for them, mentoring support, study visits to get to know other festivals experience, and we are promoting also this practice through different social media and marketing actions. But there are already top 5 messages that all those events one or another way promoting. But it's very important actually that all the events, we are not standardizing that these are those, I don't know, 10 principles you must follow, but each event designs their own bottom-up green plan and implements this. And I hope in autumn time I can share some good practice and the numbers. These are really huge numbers actually. When we take into account all those events, we have thousands visitors at those events, and if we take into account that they are not using plastic bottles, they are not using plastic tableware or dishes, and we promote to come by bicycle or on foot or by public transport, and we collect separately the waste, and we promote this local and fresh Tartu County food. And if we take all those numbers finally together, then we can see really remarkable change. And if we take into account that in Tartu County or in South Estonia, we have more than 500 quite big events throughout the year, and 500,000 visitors. And if we calculate all those numbers together, where we use less plastic bottles or those or we use reusable dishes, then this effect is quite big. And yes, we are designing our brand, let's say, this bottom-up Green Festival brand, and I hope we can very soon introduce and present those numbers and practices, and I do hope that all this European Cultural Capital events program can use this practice as well, and we can promote this practice all over Europe. Yes, thank you very much. This is all from me.
All right, then we are open for questions and for discussion, and we already have quite a lot of questions actually in the chat, and multiple people have answered stuff here and asked questions, and I have to go into it again. So there different questions. So first of all, there was a question from Ville concerning the way how currently the ESF can be spent in CLLD methods, for example. And Marian, you already answered that, but maybe you could elaborate a little bit more. So what is the current system and how that works? If a region has an ESF and wants to use it as in a CLLD model, do they have to put it into the existing LAG local leader action groups, or can they go in a different way?
Yeah, as I wrote in the chat, I think they don't have to put it in the existing local action group. They can put it in a different local action group that is working with other funds. So there is cases of overlapping local action groups or fisheries local action groups that work with different funds. So that is not a problem, but maybe not so useful, I think, because I see a lot of gains in putting it in the same group, because you have administrative know-how and you save money, actually. You save tax money. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. And first of all, I want to say that the existing local action groups that we have are mainly in rural areas. So especially if we want to have more CLD going in cities, etc., we need new action groups anyway, because we can't rely on the rural ones. But if you have one existing, then I think it is very useful to combine the different funds in that region, because it makes more sense for the administration. Because one thing that you must not underestimate is that the jobs that Christina and Marian do is very, very important for the people, because they are focusing on all the difficulties that come with bureaucracy, and they help to bring stuff together and ideas together. And so therefore, in order to canalize that the best, it makes sense to have this multi-fond idea and really bring multiple fonds here together.
Yeah, and I think you don't have to necessarily make a new local action group if you want to go into the city or village close to you, because you can just extend the one that you already have. Like, for example, we were working in the programming period 2007 to 2013 with only the rural fund, and then we had we included 4 for Swedish measures that are defined as cities with up to 50,000 people in each. And then we just extended it so that we became a bigger local action group, so to say.
Okay, yeah. And as Ville said, that's also very good to know that they've done it without the local action group of the structure. And that is, of course, also possible. It always depends on the size of the program, what you do with it. But in order to make it possible, and that's why it's important to talk here about it right now, in order to make it possible, you need to ensure that in the operating programs, there are included the possibility to actually use CLLD in regional funding. For rural development, for the agri funding, it's no problem because it's mandatory there. But for regional funding, it's not mandatory. We only have this incentive, this additional funding to make it cheaper for the member states to do that. And one hint I had for that is to use part of that funding, around 10% of what you save, you can use to build up a structure to help that this funding is used better. So to pay for administrative experts who really help to bring the people to the money. So this is something that, and for my region, I calculated it through. You can easily support the action groups as well as build new administrative networks around that, and still save 90% of the stuff that you save for the funding. So this is definitely a way to go forward. There was several questions whether we can make it possible for the presentations to be shared. For me, that's no problem. I think Marion and Christina, it's also no problem for you. Okay, perfect. The only question is how to share it. So this is a little bit the question for our technical people. If we have all your mail addresses.
Yes, we do. We will send out a mail with the recording of the webinar and with the presentations after next week, probably.
All right, perfect. That's really great. Then there has been the question from Josef concerning the committee of the region, and so there has been already in the chat a little bit going up and forth. But I just want to say this. Of course, we have a huge problem at the moment with several member states who are using the funds in order to dry up funding for opposition groups. So basically in the 4 Visegrad states, we have all the 4 capitals are in the hand of respective opposition parties. And so they don't receive any funding from their member states, or just the minimum amount they can. And so what we thought of in order to avoid that is to ensure that we have certain amounts, especially basically direct funding for cities, so to give the cities the power to use that funding. But we are also thinking of ways for the future of giving of finding ways to ensure that more funding is available for the regions without the interference of member states. However, this is a two-edged sword because we're having in mind this authoritarian regimes with nice green or liberal regions, but it is well possible that in some certain regions it's the other way around, that you have a liberal government and a region that is highly right-wing and restrictive and etc. I mean, we have seen LGBTI-free zones declarements in Poland over and over again in different voivodes. So that's highly problematic. So we're really trying to find a way. And really, if you have any ideas on how to improve that, please help us and give those ideas to us. But I think the main way that we found, and that also shows in the project that Christina and Marion prepared or showed, and then their experience, is that if we give the power to the people, then they will find out the best way. So if we leave out politics and really concentrate on what we want to do, which is bringing the community forward and ensuring that the people can work together, I think this is the best method to get there. I mean, what are your experience, Marion and Christina? Maybe did you make the experience to also bring the community together over the discussions that you had?
Yes, actually, this is indeed the key point to enable people to discuss and to enable this kind of meeting place, so that all those ideas and thoughts can come up and people discuss with each other, and there are a lot of actually through those focus groups we organized 7 focus groups. And to put together the survey, the qualitative part of the survey of food sector, and we invited all the different sectors to those focus groups, and actually really great ideas came out of this, and really innovative ideas. And I think we can rise up the quality of the development of food sector in our county through that dialogue, actually.
Yeah, and I would like to add that we have it's when we leave the project world and go to the like institution of a local action group. This very much brings the area together. We have in my local action group, every time we meet, we have like kind of reporting back on what is going on in each person's respective organization, what are the problems, what are the chances, and so on. And Leader has become an institution here that all agree upon throughout the parties, like because we get co-financed on a local level from our region and our municipalities, and they made a decision last week, and they have been fighting so much about hospitals, about transport, about all kind of things, but the leader was yes, everybody agree on, and that's nice, because then we move away from what I think is sometimes, well, now I'm talking to a lot of politicians, but sometimes I think politics is kind of hindering, because people are sitting in their corner and not looking for the best way forward together. And that is, I think that they, in a well-functioning local action group, that is the way to work.
Yeah, that's a good point. I actually agree with that partially, even if I'm a politician. But I think what we see at the moment is a lot of not sitting in the corner, but sitting at home in front of your computer and using Facebook, and only being in your either Greens Facebook group or ID Facebook group, and either like having like the bubble of perfect world, or having the bubble of complete destruction. And so this is really getting violent. I think we need to bring people together and argue together about problems and how to solve them. And so this is why I think this is really a good initiative to, especially with CLLD, to bring people together and to bring them in a room to discuss over an issue. And then when you're talking about, okay, we are clearly missing, I don't know, a hospital here or something, and we want to build up that, you suddenly see, hey, this guy, even though he has a complete other ideology or he follows other party than I, we can work on that together and we don't hate each other anymore. This is at least a little bit my hope. And I know what we've also seen, for example, there was a discussion between Italian people, citizens, and Hungarian citizens. Was like an experiment where they brought them together and discussed the issue of migration and the different perspectives that they had, and that was really bringing the people together on on these issues and seeing how the problems are, and that was a quite interesting outcome. Sorry, my head is my throat is aching. So yeah, this is at least my hope, what we can do with these funds, and what we definitely need to do more in the future is also to ensure more cross-border cooperation. That is something that is sadly not really possible. There's only one cross-border local action group in Europe, and that is in Tyrol. And in Germany, we even have problems to work together when they are, they're in the same member state, but they're in different Bundesländer and different regions, and then they cannot work together either. So this is really insane sometimes. And we need to overcome this in the future, and we will be working on that as well. I think that would be very important. Because Anu, I see you in the chat again, any representative from Belgium for Green Party. I don't quite get the question. If anybody's here, you can raise your voice or your your hands. We do have, of course, I mean, our group leader, co-president, Philippe Lambert, is from Belgium. So yes, we have 3 people in altogether in the EP group. But I wanted to answer one other thing. As you see, the issue of funding, of regional funding, is really complicated. We have different funding methods, we have different possibilities and programs. It is all then divided upon regional plans and their programming, etc., etc. You know, it is somewhat difficult, and I already wrote there is a website where you can check what the programs in your region are. It's in the chat. It is what Europe does for me. And there you can click around a little bit. I think that's the easiest way from the European level to look at it. But what we want to do at the moment is to ensure we will be writing a presentation, a publication, sorry, from the group, from the European Parliament, in which we will give you guidance, a little bit guidance around how to get funding from the European Union in different ways. Also with the other, I mean, we haven't spoken about a lot of different other funds, but to give you a little overview over that, of how to get there, and maybe some numbers where you can call and ask if we find them. So this is a big piece of work that we want to give you to make your work easier in your region. I cannot assure you when it will come, hopefully until the end of the year, because officially the program isn't even started. We'll vote on it in 2 weeks only. Officially, I mean, the details are already clear. Yeah, but this will hopefully help you. And until that, I will try to share my screen. Yes, I will do that, and I'll just show you this, what Europe does for me website. So you're on this website, and then you can click on a region. And then you can basically go through, okay, what region do I live, or what country do I live in? And let's say I would be living in Slovakia. And then you go into, and then you have the different regions in Slovakia. And then you can go to, okay, my region is maybe, what's that? Prešov, I hope that's right. And then in this one, you see down here some links. And here you have the summary of all the projects that have been run. And then the second one is always, the second link is always the link for your programs in your region. So basically here, self-governing. So, and then you click somewhere here. They are, sadly, they're all different. So it's not always the same way to go through. So I can't tell you exactly how it goes, but somewhere around here it should be, and we can try it out for another one. So let's say you're from, oh no, sorry. Let's say you're from Sweden. we'll try to figure. Marion, you're from here, right? This is your region.
Yes, yes. I think they forget completely the CLLD on this page. Yeah, this one.
No, they have it in here, but you know, then I have to Holland.
Then that one, yeah.
And then down here,
you have nothing about the CLLD.
But they must have that.
No, I have talked to them before about that.
Okay, okay. So that was a bad thing. But the issues are, what I wanted to show you is that you can find, whoa.
Oh, wow.
How can I stop this? I don't know how to, oh, there we go. I just wanted to show you how to go there and then to find it. So maybe you can use it for your respective region. They are not completely easy to use. Some of them are better, some of them are worse. I just wanted to know it's there. And in theory, the Commission checks if they're easy enough to use. But I've seen so many websites and most of them are not good enough. So yeah, the information is very static, that's true. So we will hope that our presentation and publication will be more easier. I hope that our presentation today has helped you already a little bit in finding your way through regional funding. But of course, this can only be, you know, the first step. And so if you have any questions, please reach out to us in the Parliament, as well as to your local action groups. I think that's also always helpful. And we will try to improve the funding in future and to ensure that you can get funding for green projects in your regions. So yeah, I think that's it from us. We're perfectly on time. If there's no other question, I'm not seeing any in the chat. I think we are through, and I want to thank especially Marion and Christina for taking the time and presenting the CLID projects in their region and how that really works. So thank you very much for being here, and thank you, Jeanine, for giving us the opportunity.
Thank you so much, everybody, for doing this. It's been very, very interesting, and well, we hope to be able to continue this also in view of the Local Councillors Network and see how we can provide more information in the future. Thank you so much, and thanks everybody for joining.